Ever feel like you're just swimming in information? Try to get to something deeper, but you just end up skimming the surface.
Yeah, happens all the time. It's like trying to find one specific thing in a massive library.
Exactly. And that's kind of what we try to do here on the deep dive. We take one source, one idea, and really unpack it, try to pull out the core stuff.
Get to the heart of it, yeah. Cut through the noise and focus on what might actually shift your perspective.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into something pretty specific, the power of meditation, but really focus on the heart center and the role of a guide, a sheikh, specifically Sheikh Nurjan Mirmati.
Right. Our source is a transcript from one of his YouTube videos, Muraqabah 1 Love Presence Annihilation Sufi Meditation Center. It's from the Mohammedan Way Sufi Realities.
So our mission today is to really understand the main ideas from this source. Why meditation is presented this way, why the heart, why the sheikh, what's the core message here?
And it's worth saying up front, right? There are loads of ways to think about meditation, loads of paths. We're focusing just on what's presented in this particular teaching.
Got it. Okay, let's jump in. So one of the first things that jumps out is Muraqabah contemplation or meditation. The source says it's not the start. It's the finale. That feels different.
It really does. Most people think meditation is step one, but here it's positioned as the ultimate stage connected very specifically to the heart and soul.
The heart is a doorway.
Exactly. A doorway to what the source calls divine treasures, things bestowed on the soul. And crucially, it says these treasures, these realities of the heart, you can only access them through Muraqabah at that final stage.
So it's not just about sitting quietly whenever. There's a whole preparation, a path leading up to it, and then Muraqabah unlocks something.
That's the idea. It's not just like basic reflection. It's an opening that happens when you're ready, and things like attraction, jazba, and emanation phase.
Spiritual energy.
Kind of, yeah. Those aren't things you just make happen yourself. Muraqabah at this stage is what opens the door for them. It's presented as a goal, something you actively work towards.
Okay. And to get there, to that final Muraqabah stage, the source lays out 3 doors. Muhabbat, Hutur, and Fana.
Yeah. Muhabbat, which is love, Hudur meaning presence, and Fana, which is annihilation or effacement.
And the source makes a point that often these steps are missed when people just talk about meditation itself.
Right. It emphasizes this structured progression. You can't just jump to the end. And that first door, muhabbat, love, that's framed as absolutely essential, the starting point for everything else.
And that seems to lead directly into the role of the sheikh, the guide, and keeping company with the sadiqin, the truthful ones. There are references to the Quran here.
Verses about having consciousness of Allah and, importantly, being with the sadiqin, also seeking a means to Allah, holding on to the rope of Allah.
So how does the sheikh embody that means or that rope?
Well, the teaching here is that understanding, real spiritual understanding or fahm, is granted by Allah often through these sadiqin, these truthful guides living among us.
Okay.
They are described as people who can dress us from that reality. The metaphor used is a telescoped rope from the heavens that pulls you up.
Pulls you up spiritually.
Yeah, it's metaphorical, obviously. It's about their influence, their teaching, their spiritual state, kind of lifting you, guiding you towards that higher reality they embody.
That's a strong image.
Yeah.
And the source is pretty blunt about trying to do this alone, right? It calls it virtually unachievable.
It does. And the reason given, the self, the ego.
Ah, the ego, the classic obstacle.
Exactly. It's seen as the main barrier, always creating noise, distractions, holding on to a limited view. The teaching warns that this bad character of the ego, if it's not dealt with, basically blocks access, which really highlights why they stress the need for a guide who's, supposedly navigated beyond that.
So this perspective suggests your whole spiritual life should kind of revolve around the relationship with the sheikh as the way to Allah, following the Prophet Muhammad's example.
Pretty much. It mentions a lineage, 124,000 authorized awliya, saints, who've reached this state of obedience and realization. Yeah. It grounds it in tradition.
So it's not just any guide, but someone authorized within this lineage.
That's the emphasis. And muhabbat, that love for the sheikh, is step 1. That love is meant to grow, expanding to love for the Prophet, and then ultimately love for Allah. It's a progression.
Leading towards Hudur, that presence, and Fana, annihilation, which unlocks the heart's lights and powers.
That's the ultimate goal described, yes. But getting there requires work. The relationship isn't passive. It needs muhabbat, but also good manners, character, adab, and discipline.
Discipline. It mentions the schools might seem strict.
Yeah, it addresses that directly, compares it to, kindergarten versus a PhD program. It's not strictness for its own sake, but a rigorous training to understand the idea being know yourself to know your Lord.
Makes sense in that context. It's about deep self-awareness.
And it stresses that authorized Aulia, those with opened hearts, they teach this structure, these levels. And muhabbat, love, is always, always the foundation. Just entering the Sheikh's presence is seen as the first lesson in that love and respect.
The level of respect shown might seem unusual to some.
The source acknowledges that, yeah. Contrasts it with maybe more typical mosque environments. But it frames it as necessary training, cultivating that deep reverence for spiritual guides at all levels, recognizing their station.
And this love, muhabbat, acts like a key.
A key, yes. Unlocking the next stages. And the Sheikh's specific spiritual signature is presented as necessary for those higher attainments.
So focus is important, not jumping between too many teachings.
Very much so. The source warns against being like a spiritual tourist. It advocates sticking to a specific curriculum under one guide.
Otherwise,
the risk, as it's put, is being a lifetime student of the first grade. You might have, occasional visions or feelings, but the heart itself remains closed.
So fleeting experiences versus a true, deep opening.
Exactly. The true opening is described as leading to something far more profound, unimaginable heavenly realities.
Okay, let's dig into muhabbat a bit more. Entering an ocean of love, learning reverence. But then it says the environment is sometimes designed to aggravate the student. That sounds challenging.
It does sound counterintuitive, yeah. But the explanation given is that this aggravation isn't malicious. It's intentional, designed to bring your hidden character traits, your ego's reactions, out into the open where you can see them.
Like poking the bear, but the bear's your own ego.
Sort of. Everyone around you, the situations, they can act like buttons, triggering your stuff. The advice is, watch your reactions. They're being noted on your muhabbat register.
Your love and tolerance scorecard.
Metaphorically, yeah. It's presented as a form of spiritual testing tarbiyah, a practical way to see your own weaknesses clearly. The source contrasts guides who can do this agitation with those who maybe just lead zikr, remembrance.
Why the difference?
The agitation is likened to a lab experiment, separating elements. Your reactions reveal your true character, not just the nice face you put on, like, are you only nice when you want something, that kind of thing.
Ouch. Okay. So, the goal is genuine love for those Allah loves, and patience, good character, even when tested.
Right. And even the Sheikh's own behavior, if it seems odd sometimes, is said to be rooted in this muhabbat. The advice is, look at what agitates you, because if you truly love someone, the source says, you become blind to their faults.
So overcoming those negative reactions is the key to the next stage.
That's how it's presented. Overcoming those allows you to enter the Sheikh's hutur, their presence.
Hutur, presence. What happens there?
Once you've developed enough muhabbat, you can enter the state of presence with the specific sheikh you're following. It's described as a space where your burdens, your spiritual baggage, are sort of washed away.
By the sheikh.
Through the connection, yeah. As you realize the sheikh is taking on these burdens for you, the love deepens, becomes reciprocal. And this process is said to lead to a visible change, a more radiant Nurani appearance.
A spiritual glow up, basically.
You could put it that way. And that leads finally to fana, annihilation.
Right. How does that work? Love is a magnet.
Yeah, the source says your deep muhabbat acts like a magnet, drawing your soul to the sheikh's soul. It creates this incredibly strong bond, heart to heart, light to light. It connects this to the hadith, the saying of the Prophet about being with those you love.
Spiritually, not just physically.
Exactly. It's about that deep connection. The description is a merging of lights, your light with the sheikh's light, moving towards oneness. The analogy used is interesting. One light plus one light doesn't equal two lights in this realm.
It equals one light.
It can become one unified light. The sheikh is said to graft their light onto yours, spiritually dressing your whole being.
So fana isn't just vanishing. It's your light being lost or integrated into the sheikh's bigger light.
Precisely. And the sheikh's light is already connected to this vast ocean of oneness, originating from the divine, the one soul mentioned in the Quran.
Like drops of water joining a cup.
That's another analogy used. Individual drops lose their separate form when they merge into the cup. Unlike physical objects, lights and spirits can merge.
It also mentioned changing states. Solid to liquid to gas.
Briefly, yeah. Losing the solid form of the ego, becoming like submissive liquid, and then maybe even ethereal like gas, representing a more angelic spiritual state.
Wow, okay.
But again, it all comes back to Muhabbat being the foundation. That love allows the soul to release into the Sheikh's hudur, which then leads towards fana. And just to be clear, the annihilation isn't in the Sheikh's body, but in the spiritual reality, the Muhammadan reality that the Sheikh is already connected to, already annihilated within.
Okay, wow. So let's try and wrap this up. From this deep dive, the picture is a really clear progression. Muhabbat, this deep love and respect for the guide, the Sheikh.
Sheikh Nurjan in this specific source.
Right. That leads to hujur, this state of presence, and then that culminates in fana, annihilation. They're really an integration into the divine light through that connection.
Yeah, and the path requires discipline, self-awareness through testing, and really emphasizes the absolute necessity of that student-guide relationship. It's all about unlocking the heart's potential.
The core theme really seems to be love Muhabbat, but as a disciplined, focused force. Not just a feeling, but something cultivated through connection with an authorized guide.
And that focused love is what refines the self and opens the door to that deeper spiritual understanding described in the source.
It definitely presents a very specific view on meditation, the heart, and guidance. It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? About, what does guidance mean in your own life, your own search for understanding.
What kind of guide, if any, feels relevant? What qualities would matter?
Yeah, and maybe just reflecting on love itself. Not just romantically, but as this potentially transformative force capable of reshaping how we see everything, including ourselves. Something to definitely mull over.